1045 The Team, your home for New York Yankees baseball, and thanks to our friends at Tech East Fire and Water Restoration, your best way back to normal. Visit them online at tefirewater.com. You're home for Buster Olney every week, and Buster, I'm going to give you a chance to say that I was right, that Didi Gregorius is the best Yankee right now.
You know, even before you brought this up, Levack, I was going to come in with the white flag, okay? I was going to come and say, you were right, I was wrong. Didi's a lot better than I said when we had this conversation in the spring. I will not say that he's the best Yankee, because I think Aaron Judge right now is having the greatest season that no one's talking about because of how good Didi is and because of Stanton's struggles. But, man, Didi Gregorius, he is... right now, if you took an MVP vote in the American League, no question you'd be in the top 5.
Buster, I'll admit that as the season has gone on, I have openly admitted you were right that Judge is the best player, but then wanted to hear you say Didi was better. So I feel like this is you know what? You're right. I'm right. It's just Gaz is wrong, and then everybody else is
right. The interview's over. Thank you, Buster, for joining us. Tech East, we appreciate you guys. Buster, how about Gleyber Torres? He gets called up now to the big league club. Let's get some reasonable expectations for his rookie season with the Bronx Bombers.
You know, it's hard to put numbers on it per se, but I think the one thing that you're going to see is a really mature player, and he's going to do things the right way. And you know, that's what you hear about him, is that he's got great field presence. You know, after the Cubs and the Yankees got the deal done, I talked to a Cubs person, front office person, who, you know, sort of ran through the conversations that they had regarding Aroldis Chapman, and he said they picked the right guy. Like, they weren't going to give up, you know, their top prospect. They weren't going to give up their second prospect, but they, you know, were willing to give up somebody good, and Gleyber Torres was at the top of the next group of guys. Because of his presence. And, you know, as time goes on, he just seems to, you know, his talent manifests more and more. I remember talking to Aaron Boone during spring training, and I was like, what do you think of Torres? And he just said, wow, in terms of the talent that he has. And, you know, the fact that, you know, the Yankees still, I think, believe in Tyler Wade, but let's face it, Gleyber Torres is going to be part of the Yankees infield for a lot of years, and we know that because they gave him number 25.
Well, Buster, I mean, is he the kind of player, like, is he going to be overshadowed because he's not going to hit a home run every second at bat like Judge and Stanton and even Didi at this point?
It's actually a perfect place for him to be, right? He's in a lineup where on a bad day or a good day, there are going to be more people talking about Judge and about Stanton and about Didi Gregorius and some of the other parts of that team. And I think if you're going to be a young player in New York, if you're going to be any player in New York, the idea that you'd have some press coverage like I think Gleyber will be a great way to break into the big leagues.
Buster Olney with us right now, thanks to Tech East Fire and Water Restoration. Buster, have you seen enough from Giancarlo Stanton so far to kind of say, okay, the bad days may be behind us, he's back on the climb?
I think so. Look, I still think he's going to have bad stretches because that's the nature of the type of hitter that he is. You know, we saw it last year. We went through a period when it seemed like for about 2 weeks he couldn't even make contact, and they went on this unbelievable run and wound up with the 59 home runs. I think you probably see more of that. I think that, as we've talked about in the past, every great hitter who comes through New York struggles with the pressure and the immediate expectations and the human expectation within that they want to do well. And I think he's worked through that. I do think probably Didi and Judge have taken a lot of pressure off him, and I think he'll be solid. I don't know if he's ever going to be as good as Judge is going to be moving forward, but he's a pretty good hitter, and I think he'll be fine.
We bring up the pressures of New York. We swing it to the other New York team, and that guy is Matt Harvey.
Yeah.
He's been dealing with the pressure in New York for a while, but it feels like it's finally almost won. The media pressure's won. What is the future of the Dark Knight for the New York Mets?
I got to believe that the Mets are having conversations about him and whether or not now is the time that they want to move forward. Because, look, he when Mickey Callaway took over as the manager, Dave Island took over as the pitching coach, both of those guys sat down with him. They told him that, hey, we've heard stories, all the stories about you in the past. We're not worried about it. All we're focused on is trying to figure out a way to help to make you better. And they did that in spring training. There were some really good early signs, some really hopeful signs. And then once the season started, and I still don't know the answer to this, his stuff seems to have regressed and he's not the same. And so they make the decision to take him out of the rotation. And when he said what he said to the reporters on Wednesday, where he was like, there's no chance, I don't want to talk, and, F-bombs in the middle of that, the fact that he didn't want to talk to media, I don't care about that. Like, I never cared if a player wanted to talk or not. But I do think that if you're the Mets and you're Mickey Callaway and you've got this new era and this positive feeling and you've gotten off to a good start, you got a lot of things going on, if you decide, and only Mets can make the Mets can make this evaluation, that Matt Harvey is going to be moping around the clubhouse and not going to be happy with his role, and he's a free agent at year's end, and you don't necessarily believe that he's one quick fix away from being an effective pitcher, don't you kind of have to get rid of him? If you don't think he's going to be happy and you think he's going to be a negative influence in the room because things are not going well for him, then I do think you probably have to turn the page. Now, if he's a great teammate through all these struggles and the only real issue he has is communication with the media, no big deal. Then you move forward with him and you try to fix him.
By get rid of him, do you mean just flat out cutting him or finding out if someone wants to actually take him on?
However that takes place, because there's no doubt. I mean, he'd have no trade value given his salary, given his performance. I'm sure the teams would be lined up and be willing to take him as a flyer, but I don't think the Mets would necessarily get that much payroll relief, which is incredible to think about, based on where he was just even 3 years ago.
Buster, we talk about those Mets, and Harvey's pretty much the only thing that's not going right for them. Are they a playoff team with the addition of Jay Bruce and Todd Frazier and everybody, coming back?
If those guys at the top of the food chain perform, I think I've said this to you before, that I think the Mets are probably the most top-heavy team in baseball, top-heavy contender, where their success or failure depends on such a small group of guys, on Noah Syndergaard, Jacob deGrom, Yoenis Cespedes, and I think that'll continue to be the case during the year. If those guys can stay relatively healthy, if they wind up getting 60 starts out of Syndergaard and deGrom, absolutely. And I think one thing that's worth mentioning is, the National League East is going to turn out to be a different type of race than what we expect, and I think it'll actually help the Mets. The Nationals, at the beginning of this season, they're dealing with injuries of, three major hitters: Daniel Murphy with a knee issue, Adam Eaton ankle issue, Anthony Rendon on the DL with a toe issue. Those are three guys who'd be in the top 5 spots in their lineup normally. But because they're out, the Nationals are kind of slogging along. The Phillies are better than maybe we expected they would be during the course of the winter before they signed Jake Arrieta and made some other moves. And the Atlanta Braves now, with Ronald Acuna, and by the way, did you guys see his first Major League home run?
Yeah.
Unbelievable how he killed that ball. The Braves are going to put up a lot of runs. I don't think the Braves are a playoff team because they're pitching, but what I think that is going to happen because of how the Phillies and Braves have gotten better is it kind of pulls everybody closer together within the division. These teams are going to beat the heck out of each other, and I think that'll pull the Nationals down to where the Mets are.
Buster, I had this vision, as we've been talking about baseball, of Judge in one corner outfield spot, Stanton in the other. Then how about Trout as a center fielder of the future for the New York Yankees?
Boy, and 1,000 things would have to happen before that would even come into the conversation. But I do think that right now we're in an important period for the Angels. It's kind of an audition for them to show Trout that they're going to be able to contend. He's a free agent after 2020. It's a long way away. But 2018, 2019, I think, are going to be the years when, the Angels try to show to them, look, we have gotten past some of our payroll issues with Josh Hamilton and others. We're getting better. We've got Ohtani. We've got some young pitching on the rise. Our farm system's getting better. We invested in Zach Cozart for this year, and we invested in Ian Kinsler for this year. We can win. And, Trout is such a polite, personable guy. He's not going to come out and complain about anything. But in talking with a lot of friends of his, they say flat out, this guy wants to win. And it might be that if the Angels make the playoffs 2018, 2019, Levack, your dreams of Trout and the Yankees may never come true. So you will have extra incentive to root against the Angels on Sunday Night Baseball this week.
How excited are you for this matchup, too? I feel like this is something you check off on a calendar months in advance.
Months in advance. You think about the superlatives that we're going to involve in this game. You could make an argument that Trout is one of the 5 or 6 best players in the history of baseball based on numbers. Adjusted OPS plus, he's at 172. There are only 5 players better. There's a chance on Sunday night we're going to have Albert Pujols get his hit number 3,000 for his career. We got Shohei Ohtani, who I don't think he's going to start because CeCe Sabathia left. He's going to be pitching, but he'll come off the bench. He might be the first real true two-way player in the history of baseball because Babe Ruth couldn't even sustain that. Andrelton Simmons, arguably the greatest defensive shortstop in the history of baseball. Aaron Judge, the biggest player in the history of baseball. And CeCe Sabathia will be pitching on Sunday, and he's arguably the best player, best teammate of his generation. So a lot of superlatives to work off of and to talk about. And I mean, I've been looking forward to this game for months.
Yeah, I've got a new kegerator that's just, I mean, it's primed for this game, I think. Buster, man, safe travels out there, and we appreciate you. And yeah, it's got to be easier to call right now while the Yankees are playing well.
Well, and you were right, and I was wrong. Didi Gregorius is showing that he's better than I think, certainly I expected. I mean, my goodness, when he hit that home run on Wednesday, 9 homers, 9 walks. Who is this guy? I'm stunned because you know way more about baseball than I do. A blind squirrel finds a nut. I'm gonna take this victory and go on my merry way. No, absolutely not. You nailed it,
Buster. We appreciate you, brother. Safe travels. Can't wait to talk to you next week.
See you guys.